You're just another black kid headed nowhere. Judge Kincaid's gavel detonates. Marcus Reid stands. The courtroom hushes. 18, back straight, despite the weight of every stare. The judge leans in. I know your type. Another number on a spreadsheet. His finger stabs the space between them. No discipline, no father in sight. The judge's lip curls. Where is your father, anyway? Marcus never breaks eye contact. May I call him, Your Honor? Kincaid smirks. By all means, if he even picks up. Marcus dials, voice steady, unfazed. The gallery watches like a single held breath. Dad, Judge Kincaid, says you failed to raise me right. He'd like to know where you are. Marcus's tone is calm, clear, almost surgical. Could you come to courtroom 4B now? Who is on the other end of that line? Earlier that morning, Marcus had entered the courthouse carrying his science build, an advanced air quality monitoring rig. The metal detector squealed. Officer Harker stepped in, eyes narrowing. What's that contraption? He seized the device without waiting. An air quality monitor, sir, for my scheduled presentation today. Harker flipped the rig as if looking for a hidden charge. Looks suspicious to me. Marcus kept his tone even. I have documentation. He reached toward his backpack. Hands where I can see them, Harker barked, and head swiveled across the lobby. Marcus froze, pulse pounding, as Harker called for backup. Got a suspicious device. Uncooperative subject. 2 more guards appeared. From the mezzanine, Judge Kincaid observed, arms folded, choosing not to intervene. I'm here for a committee presentation, Marcus repeated. Kincaid advanced, gaze sliding between Marcus and the hardware, his skepticism already pronounced. Why aren't you in school, son? I have an excused absence, sir. I'm presenting to the Environmental Committee. Environmental Committee? Here? The judge's tone dripped disbelief. Yes, sir. Room 302, 11 o'clock. Dr. Whitaker is expecting me. Kincaid checked his watch. We'll just see about that. Bring him to my courtroom first. The guards guided Marcus away, his precisely wired rig now half dismantled in Harker's hands. As they walked, Marcus noticed other visitors breeze through with tablets, cases, and electronics unquestioned. A white student with a trifold board passed unbothered. Marcus texted his father. Delayed. Might miss start. His father's reply arrived instantly. What's happening? Marcus typed. Paused. Dad carried enough stress already. Just extra security checks. Nothing serious. Ahead, Kincaid's robes flared with each step. Marcus caught slivers of his conversation with Harker. These people always have reasons. Teach him about authority. He'll understand his place after today. Marcus lifted his chin. This wasn't just his project anymore. What did Kincaid really want with an environmental science build from a high school senior? In Kincaid's empty courtroom, Marcus stood before the bench. The rig lay in ragged pieces on a table, delicate sensors exposed. Explain one more time what this device does. Kincaid thumbed his phone. Attention feigned. It's a particulate monitor that measures PM levels in low-income zones, Your Honor. I've been correlating those readings with respiratory ER visits. Marcus kept an even cadence. Kincaid flipped through pages, then discarded them untasted. And why bring it to my courthouse? The Environmental Committee meets here monthly. I was invited to present. Dr. Whitaker can confirm. Kincaid scrolled. I see nothing about a student showcasing equipment. Marcus's stomach nodded. The confirmation went to all committee members last week. Are you coaching me on procedure? The judge rose, stalking around the bench until he loomed above Marcus. Listen closely. I've sat on this bench for 2 decades. I've heard every angle, every scheme, every pap story. I understand. No interruptions. His palm cracked the table. Components skittered. A sensor struck the floor with a bell-like ding. That thing could interfere with courthouse systems. Marcus watched months of work fracture. Sir, that's data I collected. Research? Kincaid chuckled. Is that the word now? Who really built it? Where'd you get the parts? I designed it. Grant funds from the State Science Foundation purchased materials. Kincaid's jaw tightened. Plausible, I suppose. But let's be perfectly clear. This courthouse isn't your science fair. He lifted a circuit board with exaggerated care as if it might sprout wings. We're holding this for a security inspection. You can wait in the corridor until your so-called committee convenes. And my presentation? If they confirm your tale, you'll retrieve your property. Eventually. The smile didn't reach his eyes. Marcus stared at the disassembled rig. Data from his neighborhood, proof of environmental neglect, treated like suspect cargo. May I have a receipt, Your Honor? Kincaid's smile thinned. Getting tips from somewhere? Will months of labor be trashed before his work sees daylight? In the hallway, Marcus watched the minute hand erase his window. Security blocked him from room 302 without Kincaid's nod. Dr. Whitaker, silver hair, wire-rimmed glasses, spotted Marcus. There you are. Why aren't you setting up? We start in 15. Judge Kincaid confiscated my build. Said it was suspicious. Whitaker's brows snapped upward. That's absurd. You're our featured student speaker. Together they returned to the courtroom. Kincaid was on a call, one finger raised like a stop sign. When he saw Whitaker, his posture straightened, the tone buttoned. Judge Kincaid, Dr. Whitaker began once the call ended. There's been a misunderstanding. Marcus Reid is our invited presenter. The judge barely glanced up. This young man brought unauthorized electronics into a federal building. That requires proper protocol. It's a science instrument I personally vetted. Did you run background checks on him and his family? Kincaid shot back. Do you know where he's from? Heat rose in Marcus's face. Whitaker shifted, uncomfortable. He's one of our brightest. That's not an answer. Kincaid turned to Marcus. Where exactly are you from, Mr. Reid? Chicago, sir. We moved back 3 years ago. And prior to Chicago? Marcus blinked. My family's been in Chicago for generations. Kincaid exhaled dismissively. The device will stay impounded until authorities inspect it. However, he tilted toward Whitaker. You can take responsibility for him attending the meeting without his machine. Whitaker started to object, but Kincaid cut in. If his presentation depends on that gadget, he should have considered courthouse rules. Perhaps you'll explain to the committee why he's unprepared. Lesson in planning. Marcus's hands curled at his sides. May I at least retrieve my slides? They're on the same laptop we're holding, Kincaid said. Whitaker checked his watch. Grim. We need to go, Marcus. The committee keeps a hard schedule. Kincaid's smile turned thin as parchment. Run along then. And Mr. Reid, next time know your place before you step into my courthouse. Marcus walked with Whitaker to the meeting room, heart doing double time. 12 committee members formed a rectangle around a table. Observers rimmed the walls. Sorry for the delay, Whitaker announced. We've had an unexpected situation. Marcus stepped forward, humiliation hot in his chest but voice steady. Judge Kincaid confiscated my project and presentation materials. I'll explain from memory. A hush, pity here, quiet skepticism there. A woman in back shook her head and scribbled something. How would he salvage this? Marcus stood with empty hands and deep breath. My project compares particulate concentrations in underserved neighborhoods with affluent ones. His voice found traction, rising in confidence. Over 6 months, readings in majority-minority areas registered triple-some affluent zones. With no slides, he borrowed a pad, sketching airflow patterns, collection grids, and calibration checks. I mapped spikes against respiratory ER visits. He drew a rough plot. Enforcement variance tracks strongly with neighborhood demographics. Whitaker watched his student transform a wreck into a compelling, evidence-rich story. When Marcus closed, the room broke into applause. "Remarkable work," said the chair, Dr. Ellison, "especially given the circumstances. Where's your device now?" "Judge Kincaid is holding it for security," Marcus answered carefully. Ellison frowned. "That's highly irregular. We'll inquire. Meanwhile, these findings deserve a broader audience. Would you present at the state conference next month?" Gratitude washed through Marcus. "I'd be honored." After adjournment, he slipped into a restroom stall, leaning against the cool tile as adrenaline bled away. His hands trembled. He called his father. Landed in voicemail. "Dad, something went down. They took my project." He hesitated, refusing to sound like he was whining. "I handled it, but I need your advice. Call when you can." Outside, Whitaker waited. "You were brilliant," he said softly. "Poise under fire." "Thank you. Think I can get my rig back today?" "Let's find out." They returned to Kincaid's courtroom. The judge was mid-hearing. He clocked them, made them wait through a parade. A suited white defendant received patient clarifications. A young Latina faced clipped interruptions. After nearly an hour, the room cleared. "Still here, Mr. Reid?" "Yes, sir. I finished my presentation. I'd like to collect my property." "Not today," Kincaid said. "Securities inspection isn't complete." Dr. Whitaker stepped in. "Your Honor, Marcus needs his equipment. It holds months of data that can't be recreated. Should have thought of that before bringing questionable hardware into a federal building." Marcus met the judge's eyes. "When can I expect it back?" "When we're satisfied it's safe. Could be days, could be weeks." Marcus locked down any reaction, thanked him politely, and left with deliberate calm. Outside, he dialed a different number. "Uncle Darius, I need legal guidance on property seizure inside a federal building." His uncle's voice was steady steel. "Tell me everything. Who is Uncle Darius, and what strategy might he propose?" The next morning, Marcus arrived at school, mind snagged on the confiscation. After physics, Ms. Reynolds pulled him aside. Dr. Whitaker filled me in. Marcus recounted the events, sticking to verifiable facts. Ms. Reynolds' expression darkened. "Kincaid had no grounds to hold your property without proper cause." "Did you reach your father?" "Left messages. He's at a conference in D.C. Don't quit," she urged. "The district science fair still expects your entry next week." Marcus nodded grimly. "Then I'll rebuild." During lunch, a text buzzed from an unknown number. "Your device marked for disposal tomorrow morning. Security protocol. Sorry, friend at courthouse." Marcus's heart slammed. Months of data. Gone. He tried his father again. Voicemail. After school, he returned to the courthouse. A different guard halted him. "I need to speak with Judge Kincaid." The guard shook his head. "Judge left for the day. Come back tomorrow." "This can't wait. My property is scheduled for disposal." The guard shrugged. "Nothing I can do." Marcus spotted Harker down the corridor. "Officer Harker, a moment." Harker approached reluctantly. "What now? My build's slated for disposal." "It contains irreplaceable research." Harker smirked. "Judge's orders. Maybe you'll think twice before bringing suspicious devices here. Could I at least retrieve the data drive?" "The small blue module." "No unauthorized access to secured items," Harker replied, turning away. "Learn the lesson, kid. Move on." Marcus stepped into the evening air, swallowing frustration. He called his uncle again. "They're destroying it tomorrow." "I still can't reach Dad." "Document everything," Darius said. "Names, times, exact statements." "I'm making calls." That night, Marcus worked in the garage, rebuilding from muscle memory and salvage parts. His mother watched from the doorway. "Sometimes a fight isn't worth it." This one is, Mom. He didn't look up. This isn't just about a rig. What is it about? Marcus crimped 2 wires carefully. When Kincaid seized my project, he didn't just take hardware. He tried to silence proof that this courthouse sits in a zone with the worst air violations in the city. His mother's eyes widened. You think it's deliberate? I don't know yet, but I'm going to find out. What calls is Uncle Darius making, and will they land in time? At dawn, Marcus reached the courthouse with notarized paperwork Darius helped prepare, establishing ownership and scientific purpose, ready to press. Perhaps you'd like to explain to the committee why you're unprepared, Kincaid said. Consider it a lesson in planning ahead. Marcus's jaw flexed, but he kept steady. May I at least retrieve my presentation files? They're on the same laptop you're holding. Whitaker checked his watch again, anxiety mapping his face. We need to go, Marcus. The agenda is tight. Kincaid's smile turned papery. Run along. And Mr. Reid, know your place before entering my courthouse. Marcus followed Whitaker toward room 302, heart pounding, rehearsing data points he refused to let die on that table. Inside, 12 members sat around a conference table, observers lining the walls. I apologize for the delay, Whitaker announced, voice clipped. We encountered an unexpected issue with security. Marcus stepped forward, humiliation burning, but voice in control. Judge Kincaid confiscated my device and slides. I'll present from memory. The room hushed. Pity and doubt shared space on several faces. A woman in the back shook her head, pen racing. Marcus inhaled once and began. My project compares particulate concentrations across neighborhoods, focusing on underserved districts. Without visuals, he'd rely on method, clarity, and grit to carry him. He described sampling intervals, calibration routines, and filtering to remove confounders. He sketched airflow vortices on a legal pad, illustrating hotspots at bus depots and freight corridors. He mapped out nighttime inversions that trapped particulates near ground level. I overlaid hourly readings against ER respiratory admissions, he said, showing a tight temporal correlation with spikes. Enforcement patterns varied by zip code despite comparable violations. Whitaker watched the committee lean in. Marcus's cadence steadied, the fear burning off like fog. He finished with recommendations. Targeted inspections, mobile monitors, and community alerts when thresholds exceed safe levels. Applause rolled through the room, unexpectedly strong. Remarkable, said the chair. Dr. Ellison, especially under these conditions. Where is your instrument now? Security has it, Marcus answered carefully. Ellison frowned. Unusual. We'll inquire immediately. Meanwhile, your work warrants a bigger stage. Would you present at the state conference next month? Marcus swallowed, relief and anger warring. I'd be honored. As the meeting broke, he excused himself, retreating to a restroom stall where cool tiles steadied him. He called his father, voicemail. Dad, Kincaid seized my project. I managed, but I need your advice. Please call when you can. Outside, Whitaker waited, eyes warm. I've rarely seen composure like that, he murmured. You transformed a trap into testimony. Thank you, Marcus said. Think I can get the rig back today? Let's try, Whitaker replied. They returned to Kincaid's courtroom. The judge was mid-docket, pretending not to notice them on the back bench. A well-dressed white defendant received patient explanations. A young Latina faced rapid-fire interruptions and a hard stare. An hour crawled by. The courtroom emptied. Still here, Mr. Reid? Kincaid finally said. Yes, Your Honor. I've concluded my presentation. I'd like to reclaim my equipment. Not possible today, Kincaid replied without looking up. Security's inspection continues. Whitaker stepped forward. Your Honor, the device holds months of unique environmental data. It's irreplaceable. Should have considered that before bringing questionable electronics into a federal building, Kincaid said. Marcus met his gaze. When should I expect it returned? When we're satisfied it's safe. Days, perhaps weeks. Marcus locked down his expression, nodded once, thanked the court, and walked out deliberately calm. In the atrium, he dialed a different number. Uncle Darius, property seized in a federal building. What are my options? Darius's voice came steady. Start from the beginning. He explained everything, details crisp as if recorded. Darius listened, asked precise questions, then said, document everything, names, times, quotes. I'll start making calls. The next morning at school, Ms. Reynolds pulled Marcus aside. Dr. Whitaker told me. Marcus stuck to facts, leaving the anger unspoken. She frowned. Kincaid can't hold your property indiscriminately. Have you reached your father? Not yet. He's at a conference in D.C. Don't fold, she said. The district science fair still expects you next week. Marcus nodded. Then I rebuild. At lunch, his phone buzzed. Your device marked for disposal tomorrow morning. Sorry, friend. Heart jackhammering, Marcus dialed his father. Voicemail again. After school, he returned to the courthouse. A different guard blocked him. I need to speak with Judge Kincaid, Marcus said. Judge left for the day. Come back tomorrow. It can't wait. My property's scheduled for disposal. The guard shrugged. Nothing I can do. Down the corridor, Officer Harker appeared. Officer, please. Harker approached, bored annoyance on his face. What now, kid? My project's slated for disposal. It holds months of research. Judge's orders, Harker said, almost pleased. Maybe next time you'll think before dragging suspicious gadgets into federal space. Could I at least reclaim the data module? The blue one? Harker shook his head. No unauthorized access to secured items. Learn the lesson and move on. He pivoted away. Marcus stepped outside into evening air that tasted metallic with frustration. He called Darius again. They're trashing it tomorrow, and Dad's still unreachable. Darius's voice was calm iron. Keep documenting. I'm escalating. That night, the garage became a lab. Marcus worked from muscle memory and leftover parts. His mother watched from the doorway, concern clouding her face. Sometimes the fight costs more than it gives, she said softly. This one matters, he answered, soldering a joint. Then tell me why. He aligned a sensor with careful tweezers. When Kincaid took my device, he wasn't only seizing hardware, he was bearing proof that this courthouse sits amid the city's ugliest air violations. Her eyes widened. You think he's protecting someone? I don't know, he said, but I intend to find out. Will Darius's calls land in time to save the data? At first light, Marcus stood on the courthouse steps, holding notarized documentation Darius drafted, ownership, grant procurement, scientific purpose, and a request for immediate return. Kincaid arrived, surprise flickering when he saw Marcus. Persistent, aren't you? Yes, sir. I have documentation establishing my project's legitimacy and requesting its return. File it with the clerk, Kincaid said, moving past. I have a full docket. Sir, security plans disposal this morning. Not my department. He attempted to shoulder by. Marcus stepped sideways, respectful but firm. Your Honor, I've documented everything. If my property is destroyed without due process, I'll be forced to escalate. Kincaid's eyes narrowed. Are you threatening me? No, sir, I'm exercising my rights. The judge leaned in. You have no power here. I decide what happens in my courthouse. The courthouse belongs to the people, Your Honor, Marcus replied. Kincaid's face flushed. You need a lesson in respect. Officer Harker. Harker approached. Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Reid is causing a disturbance. Escort him out. I'm on public steps with lawful documents, Marcus said calmly. Kincaid pointed at the papers. Those look falsified. Confiscate them. Harker hesitated. Sir, you heard me. Those could be fraudulent. Marcus held the documents tight. They're notarized records of ownership and grant funds. A courthouse administrator hurried over. Judge Kincaid, urgent call. The judge stiffened, retreated inside. When they disappeared, Marcus faced Harker. I just want my project before it's destroyed. Harker looked uncomfortable. Kid, drop this. He won't let it go. Neither will I. Why follow orders you know are illegal? Marcus asked softly. Harker's eyes darted. I've got 3 years to retirement. Don't make it worse. Is your pension worth destroying evidence of environmental discrimination? Harker didn't answer. His silence said enough. Who placed that urgent call to Kincaid, and what came with it? Marcus sat on a hallway bench, refusing to leave until someone addressed the claim, every minute carefully logged. Attorneys streamed past. One finally paused, sharp-eyed, mid-40s, practical shoes. You've been here for hours. Court business? Trying to stop my property from being destroyed. Marcus said. She sat. I'm Naomi Park, public defender. What exactly? He told her. She skimmed his documentation, face tightening. Kincaid, she muttered. He's got a reputation. Let me make a call. While she stepped away, Marcus checked his phone. Still nothing from Dad, but Darius texted. Hold position, help inbound. Naomi returned. Admin says your device already moved to disposal, but we might intervene if we move now. Come with me. They descended to the basement level where confiscated items were processed. A security officer blocked the door. No entry without authorization. This young man's property is being illegally destroyed, Naomi said. The officer's tone was flat. I have orders. Through a narrow window, Marcus glimpsed his project on a table, partly disassembled. That's it, please. Months of environmental data. Step back or I'll have you removed, the officer warned. Naomi tugged Marcus aside. We need a judge's order. I'll file an emergency motion. The elevator chimed. Kincaid emerged, robes flowing, pleasure barely concealed. Ms. Park, consorting with disruptors today? Your Honor, Naomi said, this student's property is being improperly disposed of. I'm filing for an emergency stay. Kincaid laughed. Save your ink. The device was deemed a security threat by me. Based on what evidence? Naomi asked. My courtroom, my decision. He gestured at a deputy. Escort them out. Mr. Reid is banned from the building. Marcus stepped forward, careful and controlled. I have complied with every rule. Why are you doing this? Kincaid's eyes were cold glass. Because I can. Some people must learn their place. Naomi squeezed Marcus's arm. Don't engage. We'll find another path. As they were pushed toward the exit, Marcus glanced back. Kincaid entered the disposal room. Through the closing door, Marcus saw him lift a hammer. He's going to destroy it himself, Marcus whispered. Naomi's mouth thinned. Then we treat this as personal and escalate accordingly. With his project seconds from being smashed, what recourse remained? Outside, Marcus paced, the building's stone throwing back heat. Naomi dialed, argued, dialed again. No one would cross Kincaid on short notice. Gatekeepers denied. Calendars full. Favors called in and ignored. Doors that should open stayed shut until Marcus's phone finally rang. Dad, Marcus answered on the first vibration. They're destroying it now. I know, his father said, voice calm and authoritative. I've been briefed. Put me on speaker. Naomi eyed Marcus. He did. This is Thomas Reid, the voice said. Who am I speaking with? Naomi Park, public defender. Your son's property is being destroyed by order of Judge Kincaid. Understood, Thomas said. Ms. Park, walk Marcus back inside. Request to see Judge Kincaid immediately. If you meet resistance, ask security to call this number. He recited a government extension. Naomi looked skeptical but nodded. We'll try, Mr. Reid. They re-entered. Security blocked them at once. Marcus Reid is banned from the premises. Naomi kept her tone neutral. We need to see Judge Kincaid, and if you refuse, please call this number. She held out her phone, showing the extension. The guard hesitated, then dialed. His expression shifted mid-call, stiff to deferential. Yes, sir, right away. He hung up, posture altered. Proceed to chambers. As they walked, Marcus whispered, What just happened? Naomi shook her head, equally puzzled. Who exactly is your father? He works at the Justice Department, Marcus said softly. That's all I know, they continued. At chambers, the clerk tried to block them. Judge is unavailable. Naomi lifted the number. The clerk glanced, paled, and ducked inside. Moments later, she returned. The judge will see you now. They entered to find Kincaid standing behind his desk, Marcus's partially damaged rig in front of him. A hammer rested nearby like a punctuation mark. This is harassment, Kincaid announced. I've ruled on this device. Naomi stepped forward. Your Honor, we were instructed to call this number if you refuse to return Mr. Reid's property. Kincaid scoffed. Bureaucratic gnats don't concern me. Then perhaps you should place the call yourself, Marcus said softly. Something in his controlled confidence made the judge pause. He snatched the phone, weighed the insolence, and dialed the extension, jaw tight. Before that, he snapped at the clerk. Leave us! The door clicked. Speaker, Naomi requested. Kincaid ignored her, pressing the handset against his ear. A beat stretched. Yes, he said, suddenly careful. This is Judge Kincaid. I'm told you requested contact. His gaze flicked to the hammer, to Marcus, to Naomi. The room's air shifted as if the building itself leaned closer to eavesdrop on consequence. Whatever he heard tightened his face. He listened, spine straightening, pride wrestling with pragmatism. With clipped formality, he said, Understood. Then he added, But this so-called instrument was unsecured, unvetted. The unseen voice evidently cut across him. Kincaid's lips compressed. Yes, I'm aware. He nodded once, twice, eyes flicking again to the hammer. He cupped the phone. Ms. Park, Mr. Reid, step outside for a moment. Naomi's brows arched. We'll remain, Your Honor. He hesitated, then uncapped a pen, scribbling notes as if they were shields. Very well, he said into the phone. Proceed with your request. He ended the call slowly, hand lingering on the receiver. For a breath, no one moved. Then Kincaid said, Mr. Reid, you will receive your property after a formal check by non-courthouse personnel. Naomi kept her expression neutral. A chain of custody form, signed today, she said, and a receipt for the time it's been held. Kincaid's stare could peel paint. Clerk, he barked, prepare release papers. Chain of custody. Receipt, now. As she scurried, Kincaid faced Marcus. Consider this a courtesy, nothing more. Marcus didn't blink. Consider it a restoration of what should never have been taken. The clerk returned with forms. Naomi read each line, correcting a serial number and adding a clause. No data deletion, corruption, or wipe permitted. Kincaid's pen hovered, reluctant. He signed. Marcus signed. Naomi signed. A deputy arrived, carrying the rig and a plastic tub of components. The hammer mark dented one housing. The blue data module remained intact, blessedly untouched. Naomi photographed everything, documenting condition. You'll accompany us to the independent check, she told the deputy. He nodded. Kincaid's nostrils flared. You've made enemies today, Mr. Reid. Marcus met his eyes. I'm fine making the right ones. Outside, the hallway felt wider. Naomi exhaled. I didn't expect that number to work. Marcus considered the extension's weight. Neither did I. They headed to an independent lab 2 blocks away. A technician logged intake, then cloned the data module, checked some matching across copies. Preliminary look shows no corruption, the tech reported. You're lucky. Naomi arched an eyebrow. Luck had help. Marcus's phone finally buzzed. Dad, he answered. We retrieved it, Marcus said. Kincaid nearly smashed it. I'm aware, Thomas replied. There's more you need to know, but not over the phone. Finish the lab check, then call me. The lab issued sealed evidence bags and a custody report. Naomi took a copy, then turned to Marcus. This isn't over. Kincaid will retaliate where he can. Document every contact. If he so much as breathes wrong, call me. Marcus nodded, gratitude precise and quiet. Back at school, Miss Reynolds hugged him, then pretended she hadn't. Whitaker emailed congratulations and a draft invitation from the state conference organizer. That evening, Marcus installed the cloned data, rebooted diagnostics, watched familiar graphs reappear. Relief washed through him, tempered by resolve. He wasn't just rebuilding a device anymore. He was building leverage. Sunrise painted the city in diluted gold. Marcus reviewed notes, cross-referencing courthouse air readings with nearby industrial permits. Patterns sharpened like a photo snapping into focus. He called Darius. We have the data, chain of custody intact. Darius whistled. Good. Now we make it loud and hard to bury. Press? Not yet. We build a record, Darius said. File a complaint with the chief judge, copy judicial conduct, and send a preservation notice to courthouse IT. Naomi can help draft. Marcus forwarded lab reports to Naomi, who replied within minutes with a blistering professional letterhead and carefully lethal footnotes. By mid-morning, Naomi filed an administrative complaint and a motion to preserve all security footage, body cam feeds, and disposal room logs. She CC'd the presiding judge and the circuit's ethics council. Marcus attached his logs, times, names, quotes, the hammered casing. At lunch, his phone buzzed again. Unknown number. He let it go to voicemail, then listened. A level voice said, Mr. Reid, this is Chief Judge Marlowe. I'd like to speak with you regarding your filing. Please call my assistant. Marcus texted Naomi. She replied, I'll be on the line. Also, do not go anywhere near Kincaid alone. Afternoon found Marcus back at the courthouse hallway, not by choice but necessity. Naomi urged an in-person records request for quick compliance. He sat on a bench outside chambers when a woman slowed. Mid-40s, sharp, kind eyes. You've been here all day. Waiting on records, he said. I'm Naomi Park, public defender, she said. Though they'd already met, this was the formal introduction the building overheard. What records? He explained again. She examined the paperwork, nodding. Kincaid's reputation precedes him. Let me rattle a few cages. Marcus checked his phone. Darius texted, hold firm. Help coming. Marcus straightened. Good. Naomi returned, frowning. Admin says the disposal room logs are unavailable and camera footage is under review. Translation. Delay until deletion. We need an emergency order. She made more calls. They hurried downstairs again, seeking the basement processing room. The officer at the door was a different brick wall. No entry. The logs? No release without judicial authorization. Through the wired glass, Marcus glimpsed empty tables, trash cans, a steel cabinet. My project sat right there yesterday, he said. The officer shifted, blocking the view fully. Step back. Now. Naomi drew Marcus aside. We need a bigger lever. The elevator opened. Kincaid stepped out, robe swishing, mouth already shaped into a smirk. Ms. Park, still shepherding your young activist? Your Honor, Naomi said, we're filing for an emergency stay to prevent spoliation of records. Kincaid chuckled. Save your paperwork. Those materials are internal and will remain so. Based on what rule? Naomi asked. My rule, Kincaid said, tilting his head. He gestured to an officer. Remove them. Marcus planted his feet. Voice measured. I've complied with every lawful request. Why are you doing this? Kincaid's gaze hardened. Because I can. Some people need reminders about hierarchies. Naomi squeezed Marcus's elbow. Don't give him what he wants. They retreated, but not far. Through the closing door, Marcus caught a last look of the room. No hammer this time, just absence. Naomi's expression went granite. This is personal now, she said. Time to call bigger guns. Marcus's phone buzzed. Unknown number. He ignored it, then checked voicemail. Mr. Reid, this is Chief Judge Marlowe. Please return my call. Naomi nodded sharply. Good. We'll use it. They stepped into a shadowed alcove, dialed the Chief Judge's chambers, and by miracle were routed through immediately to a crisp, attentive aide. The aide listened, asked for file numbers, then put them on a brief hold. Seconds later, a measured voice came on. Mr. Reid, this is Chief Judge Marlowe. I've reviewed your filings. You did well to preserve your data. Now, what precisely happened in Judge Kincaid's courtroom and the disposal room? Marcus detailed everything, Naomi filling in legal framing. Marlowe asked careful questions. Thank you. I'll be in touch momentarily. Meanwhile, do not confront Judge Kincaid. Understood. Understood, Naomi said. They ended the call, adrenaline humming like a low-grade current. A plan was coalescing. Marcus exhaled, steadying again. Minutes later, Naomi's phone chimed with an email, an administrative directive from the Chief Judge's office requiring preservation of footage, logs, and communications related to the seizure. Copies were sent to courthouse IT, security, and the clerk. A meeting request followed. Tomorrow morning, neutral conference room, all parties. Naomi smiled without warmth. Pressure works. Marcus's phone rang again. Dad. He answered. We've got orders preserving the records, Marcus reported. Good, Thomas said. Be cautious. Kincaid will search for angles. I'm briefing the relevant folks here. Naomi gestured toward the clerk's office. Let's file in person so nobody misplaces anything. Paperwork delivered, stamped, triplicated, and emailed, they emerged into long afternoon shadows. Naomi's face softened. You did everything right. Most adults don't document this well. Marcus shrugged. Tired, but sharpened. Patterns are just data waiting for light. Her mouth twitched into a smile. That line will serve you in courtrooms. As they crossed the plaza, Marcus's phone buzzed. A number he recognized. Finally. Dad, he said, but the voice that answered was already moving. Put me on speaker, Thomas said. To security. This is Thomas Reid. Connect me to chamber staff for Judge Kincaid. Authority threaded every syllable. The guard's posture transformed mid-call. Yes, sir. Connecting. Marcus and Naomi exchanged a look. Who exactly is your father? Naomi whispered. He works at Justice, Marcus said. That's as much as I know. The call handed off. Thomas's voice was cool glass. This is a courtesy notice. A preservation directive is in effect. Any deletion will be treated as obstruction. Have I made myself clear? Yes, came a tight reply. Thomas ended the call. Naomi blinked. Paper and pressure? She murmured. Good combination. Marcus stared up at the courthouse facade, the stones suddenly less immovable than before. Early evening, they reconvened in Naomi's cramped office. She drafted declarations. Marcus annotated timelines and cross-referenced timestamps. Darius joined by phone, bringing a trial lawyer's seventh sense for where threads knot. Tie the judge's statements to each action, he said, especially the hammer moment. If footage doesn't exist, that gap becomes its own fact. Marcus mapped his data around the courthouse coordinates, overlaying wind direction and truck routes. Narrative plus numbers, Naomi said, approving. The printer hummed. By night's end, they had a file thick enough to stop a door. Tomorrow would force daylight. Tonight demanded rest. Marcus walked home under a sky the color of legal paper. At his desk, he opened the clone dataset and scrolled until his neighborhood's curve rose like a bruise. He thought of Ms. Reynolds, Whitaker, Naomi, Darius, the unseen voice on Kincaid's phone. He thought of Harker's 3 years to retirement. Systems were made of people, and people had pressure points. His phone lit with a text from an unknown number. Careful. He frowned, screenshot it, added to the log. Then he slept. Dreamless, the way exhausted circuits go dark until morning insists on power again. Morning broke clean and clinical. In the neutral conference room, Naomi and Marcus sat opposite courthouse counsel, a security supervisor, and an IT manager radiating practiced blandness. The door opened. Chief Judge Marlowe entered, composed, followed by Kincaid, storm contained in cloth. "Let's begin," Marlowe said. "Ms. Park, you're filing." Naomi summarized, crisp and unflinching. Kincaid interrupted twice. Marlowe's glance cut him off. Security produced logs, redacted but existent, and stills from cameras. Kincaid in the disposal room, hammer raised. Silence prickled. Marcus's breath steadied. Facts were oxygen. Even Kincaid seemed to feel the room tilt away from him. Marlowe spoke first. "Judge Kincaid, your actions require review. Until that's complete, you will refrain from involvement in any matter touching Mr. Reid's case or his property. Understood?" Kincaid's jaw flexed. "Understood. Ms. Park, Mr. Reid, your equipment will be released today, verified by an independent technician." Marcus nodded once. "Thank you." Then Kincaid made a gamble. He straightened, reached for control, and said, "This is an overreach. I'll be making calls." Marlowe's gaze didn't flicker. "You'll make one call, now, to the number provided, confirming compliance." Kincaid hesitated, pride warring with gravity. Then he picked up the phone. He dialed the extension Thomas Reid had supplied, each beep loud as a knuckle rap. He set the handset to his ear, staring at a spot beyond anyone's face. "This is Judge Kincaid," he said, voice measured. "I'm calling to confirm I will comply with the preservation directive and release orders as stated." A pause. Something firm answered. Kincaid's eyes flicked to Marcus, to Naomi, to Marlowe, then away. "Understood," he said at last. He lowered the receiver deliberately, like setting down a weapon he'd expected to wield longer. The room exhaled. Consequence had finally answered power with gravity. "This is Judge Alistair Kincaid. Who am I addressing?" His annoyance curdled to alarm. "Yes, I follow, but the device was—" "Yes, sir." Color drained from Kincaid's cheeks. He handed the phone back to Naomi, fingers unsteady. "Your property will be returned at once, Mr. Reid," he said, voice tight. Marcus kept his posture level, saying nothing. The deputy hovering by the door seemed to shrink a size. Kincaid cleared his throat, gestured to the clerk, and murmured orders. The hammer that nearly met metal now looked ridiculous beside the carefully labeled evidence bins. "In its original condition, with the full data set intact," Marcus added, precise. Kincaid nodded without meeting his eyes. Minutes later, they exited with the rig and components. Marcus's phone buzzed. He answered on speaker. "Is it resolved, son?" his father asked. "Yes, Dad, thank you." "Good. Now would you place Judge Kincaid on the line? I'll be in town tomorrow and would like a word." Naomi's gaze flicked to Marcus, dawning comprehension gathering. Kincaid approached, ashen. "Judge, my father would like to speak with you," Marcus said, offering the phone. All of Kincaid's swagger was gone. "This is Judge Kincaid," he said. The voice that answered was clear, controlled, and unmistakably powerful. "Judge Thomas Reid, Attorney General of the United States. I'll be in your courthouse tomorrow at 9 a.m. to discuss your conduct toward my son and a broader pattern your docket suggests. Clear your calendar." Kincaid nearly fumbled the handset. "Yes, Mr. Attorney General. I'll make arrangements." He returned the phone to Marcus and retreated, robes whispering, door swallowing him whole. Silence stretched. Even the clerk stopped typing to breathe. Naomi exhaled through her teeth, eyes bright with adrenaline and disbelief. In the corridor, Naomi let out a low whistle. Your father is the Attorney General. Marcus nodded once. Appointed last year. We keep it quiet at school. No wonder he looked like he'd seen a ghost. She examined the rig. This really is a particulate network. 6 months of readings, Marcus said, brushing a bent housing. And the hottest zones track Kincaid's harshest sentencing patterns to the block. Naomi's eyes widened. You mapped environmental neglect straight onto judicial bias without realizing the overlap. Marcus packed the modules with care. I wanted cleaner air. I didn't plan to catch a judge. Dawn crawled over the city. News vans staked the courthouse steps. The leak had outrun the first coffee. Inside chambers, Kincaid paced, phone welded to his ear. Senator, you promised. Yes, I've ruled your way. I understand politics, but this is my career. He slammed the receiver. His clerk entered pale. Sir, there are FBI agents in the lobby. FBI? He muttered. Reid isn't wasting time. He straightened his robe as if it could reconstitute authority. Down a secured hallway, Marcus and his father arrived through a staff entrance, flanked by agents with the gift of silence. You all right? Thomas asked quietly. Better, Marcus said. I never meant to launch a crusade. You stood your ground without raising your voice, Thomas replied. That counts. He squeezed Marcus's shoulder. This stopped being about your device the moment a hammer hovered. In a conference room, Naomi waited with justice officials. Maps coated a wall, neighborhoods shaded in gradients. Ms. Park has been indispensable, an aide told Thomas. She's compiled a record of discriminatory rulings that overlay perfectly with Mr. Reid's air data. Thomas studied the pins, and these correlations align with Senator Ashford's investment footprint. Another aide pointed to documents. Shell companies connected to the senator bought properties in zones where environmental enforcement lagged. After convenient non-enforcement, values rebounded. Marcus looked down at his rig. That's why Kincaid tried to smash the data set. It closes the triangle. Thomas nodded. You tripped into a larger architecture. Your environmental justice work exposed simple injustice. A knock. Kincaid entered with counsel, the temperature dropping 10 degrees. Attorney General Reid, the judge began stiffly, this spectacle is unnecessary for a miscommunication about a teenager's gadget. Thomas didn't offer a hand. We're not here about a gadget, though that incident tugged the first thread, Thomas added. Please sit. For the next hour, justice staff walked through exhibits, heat maps, timelines, sentencing statistics, call logs. The story wrote itself. In high-minority neighborhoods, the same red swaths from Marcus's readings, defendants received sentences 40% longer than factually identical cases elsewhere. Rulings on environmental petitions mapped to a private profit calendar. Counsel tried to interject. Each objection met another ledger, another timestamp. Kincaid's jaw clenched. This is a witch hunt, he snapped. I've worn this robe for 20 years. Yes, Thomas said, and we reviewed 20 years. Explain why certain zip codes get 40% more time for indistinguishable charges, Thomas continued evenly, or why calls from your chambers to Senator Ashford's office spike before rulings that miraculously buoy his projects. Kincaid glanced at counsel, who looked suddenly very tired. I want immunity, the judge blurted. His lawyer rose. My client declines further statements. Thomas nodded to an aide, who slid a packet forward. Judge, this is formal notice of investigation. You're on administrative leave pending outcome. You can't do this, Kincaid whispered. I'm not doing this, Thomas replied. Your record is. The circuit's ethics committee meets this afternoon, Thomas said, standing. I recommend preparation. As Kincaid and counsel exited, Thomas turned to Marcus. Your project illuminated what we suspected. Environmental neglect and judicial misconduct often share scaffolding. Marcus touched the dent in the casing. I wanted my neighbors breathing better air. They will, Thomas said. Your data is now evidence in a federal environmental justice action. Naomi approached. The committee wants your full presentation tomorrow, this time with protection. By evening, cable chatter ran hot. Crawls read, Judge suspended after attempt to destroy student data. DOJ probe expands. At home, Marcus watched with his parents. How big does this get? His mother asked. Large, Thomas answered. Ashford's firms bought low and blighted zones, cashed out after selective cleanup. Why target Marcus's work? She pressed. Because numbers refuse to flatter, Marcus said. My map matched Kincaid's sentencing map. It stitched environmental racism to courtroom outcomes. Thomas's phone rang. He listened, sighed. Ashford's calling for an inquiry into the inquiry. Is it political? Marcus asked. Justice isn't partisan, Thomas replied. People who fear it often pretend it is. Morning came, and with it, security and certainty. Marcus presented to the Environmental Committee with the rig alive and humming. Agents ghosted the perimeter. These readings spanned 6 months across varied neighborhoods, he said, pointing to live graphs. Complaints are citywide, but enforcement concentrated where influence lives. Heads bent toward data with newly sharpened context. This will anchor our federal case, Chair Ellison said. Mr. Reid, we'll fund expansion citywide. In the hallway, Naomi joined them. Kincaid's counsel wants to talk deal. Thomas arched a brow. Already? He knows we're holding cards we haven't shown, Naomi said. 3 judges with similar patterns just requested leave. Ashford Development stock dropped 30% at open, Naomi added. Marcus absorbed it all quietly. One build had nudged institutions. What now? He asked. Justice, Thomas said simply. And cleaner air if we do this right. A week later, the ethics hearing packed a high-ceilinged room. Kincaid sat smaller without robes. Senator Ashford hovered near a rear exit, counselors murmuring like a hive. The chair rapped for order. We're reviewing allegations of judicial misconduct, including discriminatory sentencing, improper handling of environmental cases, and corrupt ties to private development. First up, Marcus's rebuilt system, screens pulsing with correlations. Slides showed enforcement deserts and respiratory spikes, then case outcomes by neighborhood. This originated as a school project, the presenter said, but the methodology has since been verified by 3 universities. Defense objected. The chair's response was surgical. The science stands. Justice investigators followed. Call logs, bank trails, opinion language, echoing lobbying memos. Hallway whispers were blunt. The pattern's undeniable, one committee member said. Will they actually unseat a federal judge? They must, another answered. It's public now. A student cracked it open. When the hearing resumed, Kincaid took the stand looking like someone who'd misplaced gravity. He spoke carefully, the swagger gone. Some rulings may reflect statistical disparities, Kincaid offered, threading a needle. There was never intent to discriminate. The questioning turned methodical, relentless. Case pairs flashed. Same charges, same priors, divergent sentences tied to neighborhoods. And these frequent calls to Senator Ashford's office before environmental rulings, a member asked. Kincaid hesitated a fraction too long. The senator is an old friend. We discussed community development, including which environmental petitions to dismiss, counsel pressed. His attorney rose, objecting. The committee overruled, and the exhibits kept coming, each chart narrowing the room's oxygen. Phone logs stacked like bricks. Banking summaries slid across polished wood. Calendar notes aligned with bid deadlines and zoning votes. A prosecutor indicated a timeline. Your chambers contacted Ashford's staff within hours of filings in matters affecting his holdings. Subsequently, enforcement efforts paused or cases were dismissed. Kincaid's lawyer objected again. Correlation isn't causation, but a second prosecutor pointed to internal memos mirroring later rulings. You didn't just echo talking points, she said. You adopted them. Murmurs rippled behind Marcus. Even from the gallery, the pattern felt visible, like a watermark suddenly revealed under forensic light. The judge's control cracked. This is partisan theater, he snapped. I've given 20 years to this bench. Thomas remained calm. We reviewed 20 years, including comparable fact patterns with starkly different outcomes depending on zip code. Would you care to explain? Kincaid glanced to his counsel, then at the clock, as if minutes might rescue him. My client will not answer further questions, counsel announced. He requests discussions about immunity. A silence settled, shocked and unsurprised at once. Thomas nodded to a staffer, who slid a sealed envelope forward. You're on administrative leave, effective immediately, Thomas said evenly. The chair added, judicial discipline proceedings commence this afternoon. Kincaid's lips whitened. We can, the chair said, gaveling gently. And must. As security guided Kincaid out, Thomas turned to Marcus. Your data set pulled thread from wool, he said softly. Now the loom is showing. Marcus exhaled, fingers brushing the dented casing in his bag. He hadn't meant to become a witness, but here he was, standing in the bright middle. Naomi touched his elbow. You present tomorrow, she said. Full slides, full protection. Then we do the work, Marcus answered, voice steadier than he felt. Outside, cameras prowled. Headlines crawled across phones. Federal judge suspended in bias probe. One banner glared. At home, the television glowed while dinner cooled. Marcus's mother asked, how big can this get? Thomas loosened his tie, tired steel in his eyes. Large enough that some people will call justice politics. Large enough that others will finally breathe. Marcus watched footage of neighborhoods blinking crimson on maps, then receding toward orange. He tried to erase a data set, Marcus said, because it stitched his sentencings to bad air. Thomas's phone vibrated again. Ashford wants a press conference, he said dryly. Morning returned them to the committee. Marcus presented cleanly, the instrument humming like a throat-clearing truth. 6 months, he said, across multiple neighborhoods, complaints citywide, enforcement clustered in places with donors. He clicked through calibration steps, sampling intervals and validation runs. Ellison nodded. This will anchor our federal filing. We'll fund citywide expansion. In the hallway, Naomi intercepted a text, eyebrows climbing. Kincaid's lawyer wants to talk, she told Thomas. He's earlier to the bargaining table than I expected. Thomas filed the note away. It means he's realized the floor beneath him isn't load-bearing anymore. The ethics session packed a different room, same density of consequence. Kincaid appeared smaller without the robe's architecture. Near a side door, Ashford conferred with aides, the conversation all hiss. The chair recited scope, discriminatory sentencing, irregular environmental case handling, potential corruption linked to private development. Marcus's rebuilt rig sat on a stand, screens rendering particulate plumes like weather. A university scientist testified. We replicated Mr. Reid's methodology independently. The findings are robust. Defense tried to dismiss student work as anecdote. 3 signatures from separate departments said otherwise. The charts weren't theory. They were habit caught on camera. During recess, 2 members whispered near the water cooler. The pattern's irrefutable, one said. Will they actually unseat him? They'll have to, the other replied. It's already public. The kid lit the fuse. When the hearing resumed, Kincaid took the stand again, posture arranged, eyes tired. Some disparities exist, he conceded. Never intentional. Counsel for the committee advanced a pair of cases. Same charges, same priors, different zip codes, a 42% delta in time served. Intent hides well, she said, but outcomes don't. The words seemed to land like gravel in the chamber's careful quiet. And these calls? Another member pressed, tapping a timeline. Dozens to Senator Ashford's office before key environmental rulings. Kincaid's jaw moved, stalled. The senator and I discussed community redevelopment, including which environmental actions to delay. No. His lawyer rose to interrupt. The chair's gavel found wood. Answer the question. A beat stretched. We discussed overall priorities, Kincaid said, each syllable a retreat. He's an old friend. Thomas's gaze didn't waver. Old friendships rarely require secret calendars. The room felt like a lens focusing heat. Somewhere outside, sirens Dopplered past. Inside, silence did the heavier work. Cornered, Kincaid sought an exit that wasn't there. I want consideration, he blurted finally. For cooperation. Counsel whispered urgently in his ear. He nodded, shrinking further. The chair glanced at Thomas. A measured pause hung like balance. This proceeding will recess, so Judge Kincaid can provide a sworn proffer to federal authorities, the chair announced. The gallery rustled with recognition. Marcus exhaled slowly. Thomas leaned toward him. When powerful structures buckle, they usually lean on other beams on their way down. Naomi's pen skated across a pad. Names to ask, dates to request, files to freeze. Reporters eddied outside. Thomas faced microphones briefly. When environmental protections are enforced selectively, we decide whose kids breathe freely, he said. That's not justice. Marcus watched Kincaid walk, not escorted exactly, but directed to a side conference room. Their eyes met. The judge looked away first. Evening brought breaking news banners. Ashford resigns committee chairmanship, one Chiron read. Ethics, DOJ expand probes, another stacked beneath. Marcus felt the city inhale, an unseen chest easing. I never meant to set this off, he told his father. You meant to measure the truth, Thomas said. It measured back. The next day, Marcus returned to the committee with agents at polite distance. He demonstrated sensor drift checks, redundancy arrays, and anomaly filters. This is what accountability looks like at the particle level, he said, and a few members actually smiled. We'll scale it citywide immediately, Ellison promised. Naomi slipped in with fresh updates. Kincaid offered a map, she murmured. Not just his actions, threads to others. Thomas's jaw worked once. We'll verify every inch. He checked his phone. 3 other judges announced leaves. Ashford Development stock down another 32%. The dominoes weren't falling. The scaffolding was. 1 week later, the ethics hearing reconvened to a gallery thick with attention. Kincaid sat with counsel, diminished by daylight. Ashford hovered at the back again, then slipped out a side door when Thomas and Marcus entered. The chair opened formally. We are reviewing a record including discriminatory sentencing, improper dismissals, and corrupt entanglements with private development interests. Marcus's display glowed, clean and unbroken. Screens pulsed correlations, air violations, ER visits, enforcement deserts, sentencing spikes by neighborhood. Defense objected, student work. But 3 university letters and an independent lab report said otherwise. The numbers spoke with their own weather. Justice investigators presented next. Phone records, bank ledgers, drafts from chambers aligning with donor memos. It's too neat, someone whispered behind Marcus. That's what a pattern is, Naomi murmured back. During a pause, two committee members traded looks. Undeniable, one said. Do we have the will? We do now, the other replied. When testimony resumed, Kincaid's voice was quieter, the muscle gone from sentences. Disparities, yes, he said. But intent. Counsel cut him off to amend strategy. My client is prepared to provide full cooperation regarding Senator Ashford's role. The room didn't exhale so much as lean forward. The chair nodded to Thomas. He offered a slight, almost imperceptible nod in return. We'll recess for a proffer, the chair announced, after which we'll consider interim measures. Outside, microphones bloomed again. Thomas addressed the press. When environmental protections are enforced selectively, we decide whose kids breathe freely, he said. That's not justice. Marcus watched agents guide Kincaid through a door that did not say exit but meant it. Later that night, alerts multiplied. Ashford announces resignation. Developers call emergency meetings. EPA launches multi-city reviews. Marcus stood by the window as sirens braided the city's cool dark. You never intended a cascade, his mother said, joining him. No, Marcus admitted, but I'm not sorry it happened. Thomas arrived home late, tie loosened, eyes still at work. His statement named names, dates, amounts, he said. The network was wider than we'd mapped. Will it matter? Marcus asked. On the street where we live? Thomas nodded. EPA is accelerating remediation in affected corridors. Your framework for community monitors is being adopted. Neighborhoods will measure their own air, and their agencies. Marcus pictured young hands installing sensors where smoke once hung. He imagined graphs bending downward like relief. Weeks turned into a season and brought a stage Marcus never imagined. In Washington, he stood behind a lectern at a National Environmental Justice Summit, his enhanced rig displayed like a proof that breathes. This isn't abstraction, he told scientists, organizers, officials. It's about whose lungs carry the cost. In the front row sat Thomas and Naomi, now co-leading an environmental justice task force. Behind Marcus, maps shifted, before and after plumes receding. 3 months ago, particulate levels in these zones exceeded federal standards by triple, he said. Today, with enforcement and transparency, we've cut them by more than 2/3. During a panel, the EPA director lifted a hand. We've launched similar monitoring across 30 cities, she said. The data is surfacing enforcement deserts we suspected but couldn't show. A DOJ representative added, following Ashford's indictment, we opened investigations in a dozen states with analogous patterns. Kincaid's cooperation is illuminating. The room hummed, not celebratory so much as charged. Marcus sat back, hearing his name used as shorthand for a case that was never about him alone. Afterwards, someone asked, what about the courts? The ethics chair answered, we've implemented transparency rules and bias audits for environmental rulings. Later, father and son walked the mall under a generous sky. Ashford's companies will pay for remediation, Thomas said. Settlement funds, community clinics, focusing on respiratory care. Children cartwheeled on grass gone unmeasured by particulate for once. Will it last? Marcus asked. If people keep measuring and speaking, Thomas said. Marcus's phone pinged a full scholarship from the state university to study environmental science and law, 2 languages he'd already begun to translate into each other. They want statewide expansion, Marcus said, half laughing. From garage build to policy. Thomas smiled. Systems change because someone refused to bow. A news alert marched across his screen. 3 more judges on leave in separate states. It's spreading, Marcus said. Thomas nodded. It was never isolated. The first crack just let light in. They stopped, facing the DOJ's stone facade. Next week, we announce a national initiative built on your model, Thomas said. Community collected data, public dashboards, enforcement tracking anyone can read. Marcus pictured a country dotted with small sensors and large resolve. He pictured kids at folding tables turning air into evidence. The wind off the reflecting pool carried cleaner than memory air. He breathed and kept walking. A year later, Marcus walked his old block, surprised by how new it smelled. Saplings shaded sidewalks where sun once baked paint to chalk. Professional monitors, built from his design, blinked at corners, broadcasting numbers to a citywide app. He paused outside the courthouse where the first domino toppled. Same stone, different rules. A plaque near the steps announced the Environmental Justice Review Board, created after the Ashford-Kincaid scandal. Inside, a community exhibit traced particulate maps to policy changes. Kids clustered at interactive screens, making sense of trends with fingers, not guesswork. Measuring, then asking, then expecting an answer. Naomi, now special counsel for environmental justice, joined him by a display housing his original rig, repaired, preserved, contextualized. The traveling exhibit hits Chicago next, she said. Projects inspired by your work now operate in 47 cities. Marcus asked, how are judicial reforms holding? 17 judges reviewed for patterns, she said. 5 resigned mid-inquiry. Kincaid took a plea. Community service in the neighborhoods his rulings hurt. Marcus blinked. He agreed. Leverage, Naomi said. Plus sunlight. She guided him toward a conference room where Thomas waited with officials and neighborhood leaders, maps blooming with fewer red zones. A public health officer briefed them. Childhood asthma admissions down 32% in impacted tracts. Adult ER visits trending similarly. Thomas embraced his son, quick and fierce. Your model is now the federal standard for community air monitoring, he said. Marcus shook his head, smiling, still adjusting to the scale. It was never only about parts, he said. It was about asking who gets protection. A neighborhood organizer stood. For years, we knew the air was making us sick, but without proof, we were just noise. Thomas nodded. Justice needs evidence, and people unwilling to be quiet. After the meeting, they walked past a park built atop what used to be a dump site. Children's laughter replaced diesel cough. Ashford's sentencing is tomorrow, Thomas said. His companies will fund remediation for 2 decades. Across the street, teens installed a new monitor, reading instructions in Spanish and English. They're expanding it without me, Marcus said. That's the point, Thomas replied. Change that lasts, outlives its spark. At the high school, a banner announced a new environmental science academy named for Marcus. Embarrassing and exactly right. Inside, students analyzed live feeds and drafted reports for council meetings. You know what Kincaid told me while volunteering at a clinic? Thomas said. He never believed one person could shift a system, especially someone young. Marcus watched students argue over outliers and baselines with the seriousness of meteorologists. It wasn't just me, he said. It was Ms. Reynolds, Dr. Whitaker, Naomi, you, the committee, people who stepped forward once the first domino fell. The late sun warmed brick and new leaves. Marcus looked around at ordinary miracles, breathable air, measured truth, officials answering community charts. The system only functions when protection is equal, he said. That's the lesson. Thomas nodded. Justice isn't automatic. It requires vigilance, good data, and the courage to say no to power when it forgets its purpose. Marcus smiled at how simple and heavy that sounded. His phone buzzed with a message from a middle school teacher in another city. Her students had built sensors from open plans and wanted tips. Marcus texted back a schematic and a promise to Zoom. Your place, Thomas said, following his gaze, is wherever you decide to stand. Outside, a bus sighed to a stop without coughing black. The air, for once, didn't need explaining. If this story gave you backbone, pass it on. Shine algorithms toward narratives where ordinary people stand upright against crooked structures. Tell the friend who thinks their voice is small. Remind the neighbor who's tired. Leave a comment that becomes someone else's first step. Follow the work beyond this chapter. Community dashboards, clinic reports, remediation starting, indictments pending, reforms stubbornly continuing. Pay attention because power counts on your distraction. Then show up when your neighborhood needs a censor, a witness, or a calm voice saying, "Here are the numbers. Now do your job." One person, many hands, measurable air. You've heard the arc. What will you do with it? Start with your block. Borrow a library CO2 meter. Ask your council for enforcement audits. Join the PTA and put air on the agenda. If your city posts inspection data, scrape it. If it doesn't, ask why. Learn the difference between dust and diesel. Know the thresholds. Teach a kid to read a graph, because awareness without action becomes a lullaby, and this story only matters if it turns into hands building, letters sent, budgets amended. Systems change under pressure. Be gentle where possible, stubborn where required. If you found clarity in Marcus's path, tap the subscribe button so more people can find it. Algorithms aside, share the piece directly with someone who breathes the same air you do. These accounts of standing up quietly, thoroughly, with receipts, need daylight. And if you try something, report back. Wins, setbacks, lessons. The next neighborhood deserves your shortcut. The next kid deserves your schematic. The next hearing might need your chart. Don't wait for permission to notice. Don't accept power's preference for your silence. You already know how to begin. Measure, document, connect, insist. The rest is follow through. This isn't a movie. Institutions don't roll credits. They keep going, and so must we. Somewhere tonight, a monitor blinks in a window, logging numbers that will become a question at City Hall. Somewhere, a clerk pauses before backdating a form because now she knows someone is counting. Somewhere, a judge reconsiders a sentence because sunlight feels nearer. Build the quiet habits that make those moments multiply. Archive pages, timestamp calls, keep logs like journals. Justice is a ledger and a long memory. Write your line with care, then help someone else write theirs until the book stands. Maybe you're thinking, I'm not an attorney general or a scientist. Perfect. Marcus wasn't either, until he learned enough to be dangerous to indifference. Start small, map a bus corridor's haze, track idling outside your school, pair readings with hospital admission stats. Find allies, nurses, teachers, coders, librarians, parents who count pills at night. Power underestimates coalitions built from errands and spreadsheets. It overestimates how quietly the harmed will stay harmed once they hold proof. The point isn't to go viral, it's to go local. Pixels first, then policies. A cleaner block is a new baseline for courage. If someone tells you to know your place, consider replying as Marcus did, by standing still, speaking plainly, and bringing evidence. Keep your voice low enough to hear the other person's silence. Ask for the receipt, the badge number, the chain of custody form. Don't surrender your calm. Make them meet it. Systems often confuse composure with permission. It isn't. It's strategy. And when they reach for a hammer, remember, timestamps travel fast, and so do phone numbers that ring in rooms where impunity used to nap comfortably. Sunlight is not polite. It arrives bright and warm and unbothered. When the news cycles on, the work stays. That's all right. Let the headlines fade and let the dashboards remain. Let kids argue happily about error bars. Let a block association learn what PM 2.5 actually means. Let a clinic hang a chart showing admissions trending down like mercy. None of this was magic, just measurement, documentation, pressure, reform, repeat. The distance between outrage and outcome is paved with boring steps. Walk them anyway. You'll be surprised how quickly boring becomes beautiful when it lowers sirens and raises life expectancy. That is, the plot twist power doesn't anticipate. Patience. And if you're afraid, good. Fear is a sign you're close to something worth touching. Take one step anyway. Send one email. Ask one pointed question in public. Buy one sensor with two neighbors. Read one ordinance out loud into the minutes. Fear often shrinks under specificity. So do bullies. Marcus never yelled. He never needed to. He let numbers do the loud part and let patience do the sharp part. You can too. The door you're nudging has hinges already loosened by someone else. Press where it yields. Brace where it resists. Then invite others through. This chapter ends where the next begins. On a street that smells like trees, in a room lit by dashboards, in a courthouse that learned a new habit called preservation. Marcus's story doesn't belong to one city. It belongs to anyone who has choked on exhaust and been told it's weather, or sat in a courtroom and recognized the scale wasn't calibrated. Breathe, then build. Demand receipts, then reforms. Celebrate when graphs slope the right way. And when someone mutters that nothing changes, show them a map, a clinic report, a convicted developer, a resigned judge. Then keep going, because justice without continuity is performance, and this isn't theater. It's air. It's children's lungs exchanging oxygen for laughter. It's elders walking to the store without tasting metal. It's nurses seeing fewer panicked wheezes at midnight. It's neighborhoods not held hostage by someone else's profit calendar. The work is unglamorous and exactly glorious enough. It will not congratulate you. It will simply get quieter around you. Streets will sound like newsletters read with the windows open. Schoolyards will sound like recess instead of engines. You'll know it's working because you'll forget what the bad air used to taste like. If you stayed to the end, you've already chosen curiosity over comfort. Choose one block next. Choose one data set to become a habit. Choose one official to pester politely until they feel watched, in a good way. Choose someone younger to teach what you learned here. Marcus didn't script his role. He filled it because a door slammed and he decided not to leave the hallway. You can do something smaller and just as necessary. The table always needs another calm chair. Pull one up, lay out your evidence. Ask for the simple thing: equal protection, measured and enforced. Next week, Thomas's initiative will roll out dashboards anyone can read. Permits, inspections, enforcement, appeals, sentencing outcomes. No more mystery braided into bureaucracy. Expect objections, complexity, privacy, cost, fine. Handle complexity with design, privacy with redaction, cost with redirected waste. Expect lawsuits claiming statistics are slander. Answer with peer review and public code. Expect a judge to frown at sunlight. That's what sunglasses are for. Marcus's model was never a gadget. It was an ethic. Measure what matters, publish it, and insist on action where numbers point. He didn't invent truth. He just refused to let it be quiet. A year on, the neighborhood keeps proving ordinary triumphs are the best kind. The bus depot installed scrubbers. Delivery windows shifted to reduce night inversions. Tree canopies doubled. Contractors stopped idling on school blocks because neighbors filmed, logged, and fined with cheerfully obnoxious precision. The monitors Marcus helped design hum at corners, blinking like patient metronomes. Graphs sag where they should. A plaque on the courthouse wall doesn't fix the past, but it keeps the future awake. Justice learned a new reflex: preserve, disclose, review. It's not perfection, it's movement. And movement, measured, tends to continue. Inside the exhibit, a third grade class gathered around Marcus's original rig, now museum patient and dignified. It looks simple, a kid said. That's because it is, Marcus answered. Simple done consistently beats complicated done sometimes. Naomi arrived with a grin. Chicago loved the show, she said. 47 cities and counting. How many judges left rather than be audited? Marcus asked. 5, Naomi said. 17 more reviewed. Kincaid's community work is real, uncomfortable, humbling, ordinary. That may be the best part. Marcus watched a teacher explain calibration with a kitchen scale analogy. Science moved at the speed of the curious. In a conference room, officials and residents reviewed updated maps. The angry reds softened to earnest yellows and something like spring. Child asthma down a third, the health officer repeated, almost savoring the words. Thomas hugged his son, professional pride crossing into parental. Your framework is now baseline policy, he said. Marcus shrugged. It was never the tech. It was asking who deserves the shield of enforcement. A community leader stood. We lived with invisible harm for decades. Data made it visible, then actionable. Thomas nodded. Evidence is a spine. People are the muscle. Together they lift policy. They strolled past a park rising where a dump once slouched. Sentencing tomorrow, Thomas said. 20 years of remediation funding. Teens bolted a sensor to a light pole, joking about lag and packet loss. They're owning it, Marcus said, pleased. That's durability, Thomas replied. At the high school, a banner fluttered. Environmental Science Academy, Marcus Reid campus. Inside, young analysts compared new readings to clinic data, turning numbers into arguments for budget lines. Kincaid told me he never imagined one person could move a system, Thomas said. Especially someone young. Marcus smiled. We didn't push alone. We just started. Sunset spread gold on brick and leaf. Marcus looked at the ordinary bloom of better air and felt the odd humility of success. Fewer sirens, more soccer. The system works only when protection is distributed evenly, he said. Thomas agreed. And only when people keep watching. A message pinged, another teacher asking for open source plans, this time from a river town. Marcus replied with links, a troubleshooting tip and encouragement. Your place, Thomas said gently, is wherever you decide to plant the next monitor, metaphorical or not. Marcus laughed. Then I guess I live where the air moves. If this story steadied you, share it. Algorithms are fickle. Neighbors aren't. Send it to the parent who keeps an inhaler in every bag, to the kid who likes coding, to the grandparent who writes letters in longhand. Visibility multiplies pressure, and pressure builds policy. Leave a comment that functions like a breadcrumb for someone else's route. Subscribe if you want more receipts and fewer myths. And consider doing the smallest actionable thing before you scroll away. One email, one request for records, one sensor ordered with 2 friends. Momentum loves modesty. So does measurable breath. You've seen the line from harm to habit to halt. What now? Pick something tangible within walking distance. If your city posts inspection data, build a public spreadsheet. If it doesn't, file your first request. If your courthouse resists sunlight, attend one hearing with a notebook and a polite persistence. None of this requires titles. It requires noticing and not letting go. Marcus's journey wasn't cinematic. It was stubborn and documented. That's a compliment. Justice turns on people who don't confuse a press release with a result. Keep asking. Keep counting. Keep showing up until numbers move. Awareness is step 1, not the stairs. Turn knowledge into habit, Set a monthly reminder to download the latest air file and paste it into your tracker. Volunteer at a clinic to understand what particulate means inside lungs. Invite a council member to walk your block at rush hour. Put your graphs in their hands while the buses sigh past. If they say, "It's complicated," agree cheerfully and ask which part they're solving today. Meet shrugs with specifics, outrage with outcomes, delay with documentation. Justice is less a speech than a spreadsheet you can read in daylight. For those who ask why bother, because somebody else's convenience has been sitting on your chest, and the minute you measure it, you can name it, shame it, budget it, and eventually end it. Marcus didn't become powerful. He became legible. Systems had to answer legibility. That's your move too. Don't chase villains. Fix incentives. Don't wait for heroes. Be a neighbor. And if someone tries to confiscate your calm, guard it like evidence. Calm forces sloppy power to show its seams. Then you can thread those seams into affidavits and policy in parks with kids in them. This epilogue isn't an ending. It's a handoff. Marcus will keep measuring, and Thomas will keep drafting, and Naomi will keep filing, but the work lives where you live. Teach a student to calibrate. Ask the judge to publish reasons. Request the camera footage before it gets misplaced. Praise the inspector who shows up and cite the one who doesn't. Systems are people, and people change under attention. Be the kind that holds steady, counts fairly, and refuses to treat oxygen like a luxury. You already know the tools: patience, paper trails, public dashboards, shared stubbornness. If this gave you anything, courage, a checklist, a nudge, pass it on. Someone is where Marcus was, holding a device, told to leave, deciding whether to stay. Tell them staying is possible. Better, useful. Subscribe if you want more maps. Share if you know a neighborhood that breathes worse and deserves better. Comment with your city so others can find you. Justice likes company. It travels faster in small groups with snacks and spreadsheets. And when you feel small, remember, a quiet file can undo a loud lie. A calm question can halt a hammer mid-swing. If you found resolve in Marcus's chapter, tap like so the platform's currents carry it to people who need it. Stories of measured insistence and institutional course correction deserve daylight. Subscribe for more narratives where evidence crawls into rooms and changes outcomes. Share with the friend who's ready to do one thing after reading. Tell us where to look next. Send your graphs and wins. Because the air we fix together is the air we share together. That's not metaphor. That's measurable. It tastes like relief and sounds like recess. Keep going. The dashboard isn't done until everyone's included. You've walked the arc with us. Now decide where to press. At Black Culture Story, we believe reflection is the spark and action is the flame. Subscribe if you want practical blueprints, not just headlines. Share this with someone whose lungs deserve better. Speak at your council, volunteer at your clinic, wire your first sensor. Awareness is a waypoint, not a destination. The numbers will move if we do. One person can start it. Many can finish it. You know your place now. It's the spot you choose and stand, measured and unafraid, until the air says, "Thank you."